Hello everybody, my name is Brady and we're back with another React video, and today we're going to be checking out more Hamilton. Today's song is One Last Time, Hamilton at the White House, hashtag Obama's legacy. Sorry, hashtag Obama legacy. I can't read apparently. So this is different. It's a live performance and I typically avoid live performances, mostly because of all that Disney stuff. I don't want the Disney stuff to be featured on the channel because that's a delicate situation when it comes to copyright. I don't want my videos to be destroyed the next time YouTube decides they want to crack down on copyright. I want to have some stuff that might be able to last for a while, so I've typically avoided that and I've done the animatics. This is a live performance from the Obama White House. Maybe I can get away with this one. It seems like it's safer than doing the Disney Plus stuff, so we're gonna give this a shot. So I'm doing these out of order. I accidentally skipped this song, so we're going back to it. One last time, we get to wrap up the Washington administration. I'm excited about that. That should be really cool. And the live element adds a little bit more to this. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. And being this song in the end of the Obama administration, like, that's cute. That's cute. I see what they did there. That's a lot of fun. So let's do it.
Mr. President, you asked to see me.
I know you're busy.
What do you need, sir? Sir?
I want to give you a word of warning.
Sir, I don't know what you heard, but whatever it is, Jefferson started it.
Thomas Jefferson resigned this morning.
So I know I'm a little bit repetitive from video to video, but I like to treat each of these songs in a vacuum when I give the historical context behind things. So Thomas Jefferson resigns. He's kind of spinning his wheels in the Washington administration because Washington tends to lean more towards Hamilton. That's just the ideology there. It's interesting because you have Washington, who's like this Virginian planter. He would seem to have a lot in common with people like Jefferson. They had so much that would have connected the two, but that didn't seem to ever manifest in any significant way in the cabinet. Washington almost always leaned in the direction of Federalists like Hamilton. So what's he gonna do? He's just spinning his wheels. He's probably feeling kind of impotent at this point. So let's go home. Let's try sitting at home for a little bit. If Washington decides he wants to run again, we'll see. Jefferson's hat will probably be in the ring, but really, as long as Washington's around, Jefferson isn't really going anywhere.
You're kidding.
I need a favor.
Whatever you say, sir. Jefferson will pay for his behavior.
Talk less.
I'll use the press. I'll write under a pseudonym. You'll see what I can do to him.
So a pseudonym is when you write under a fake name, or a pen name, I guess. And Hamilton and Jefferson had a whole lot of that going on back and forth. Jefferson, probably even more so. He had his own dedicated newspaper guys who would get his ideology out there. Even within Federalist administrations, especially in the Adams administration, where he is the vice president, he's going to kind of sabotage the Federalists a little bit from within, using public opinion. That's kind of why Jefferson is seen as more of a Democratic president. Even though democracy, as we would come to know it, is not really taking its full form yet, he did lean towards the people a little bit more than somebody like Hamilton, who doesn't really like ordinary people. He doesn't like those smelly, poor people or anything. He's not a fan.
I need you to draft an address.
Yes, he resigned. You can finally speak your mind.
No. He's stepping down so he can run for president.
Good luck defeating you, sir.
I'm stepping down. I'm not running for president.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, so he's asking Hamilton to draft his farewell address, which he does. A lot of Washington's best speeches, and he's not known as like this amazing speaker or anything, but they were written by Hamilton, some by James Madison. When he first got into office, there's this funny little story about how the president has to do like a little speech thing that addresses the Congress, and then the Congress has to respond to that speech, and then Washington would respond back, but James Madison ends up writing all three of those speeches. So it's kind of humorous because James Madison is like writing back and forth to himself. So Washington doesn't really write a lot of his own speeches. Hamilton has kind of a way with words, and you'll find it if you check out the address. You can feel Hamilton's pen on it. If you start to recognize Hamilton's writing style, you can kind of tell.
One last time. Relax, have a drink with me one last time. Let's take a break tonight, and then we'll teach them how to say goodbye. To say goodbye, you and I. No, sir, I want to talk about neutrality, sir.
Okay, so this is really one of the biggest things about Washington's legacy. If he didn't step down after 2 terms, I don't know how we would have viewed him. This is just huge because there's this big question: how long is Washington going to serve? A lot of people think he can just serve as long as he wants. He could serve until he dies, and a lot of people would be okay with it because they welcome that level of consistency that he provides. He does have pretty good judgment, and he has people on both sides of the aisle that tend to like him. But he decides he's going to step down. So what makes this thing so huge is the symbolism behind it. I don't usually buy into symbolism as much as a lot of other people do. It's kind of a distraction a lot of the time. But in this case, this really mattered. Nobody knew what the presidency was going to be. A lot of people thought, give a lot of power to one central executive, that seems kind of monarchical. But what Washington does is the ultimate anti-monarch move. What a monarch does, they cling to power. And if it's not them, it's their family. It's a very exclusive group of people that get to have that level of privilege. What Washington does, he essentially gives the presidency back. This symbolically separates the American presidency from the idea of a monarch. You could say, like, yeah, it has a lot in common with a monarchy, but this kind of separates it from that permanent element. This doesn't have to be forever. Eventually, this guy will step down and we'll give it to the next guy. Another thing, he establishes the 2-term precedent. You are technically allowed at this point to run as many times as you want. They didn't establish term limits until FDR in the 20th century. So we have a lot of time here, and we have so many presidents who just run 2 times. They get their 2 terms, and then, yeah, they walk away. They do the George Washington thing. They step down when it's time. Of course, we've had some people who tried to get their 3rd term, but nobody got it until FDR. And then shortly after that, oh, we're making term limits, and now the George Washington style of exit is mandatory. So that's kind of interesting.
No, sir. I want to talk about neutrality.
Sir, with Britain and France on the verge of war, is this the best?
I want to warn against.
That's a really big issue right now, and they talk about it a little bit more in the musical, but the neutrality thing was probably one of George Washington's better decisions, but it's one that is going to make everybody a little bit uncomfortable, and we're going to have a lot of problems with that going into the Adams administration. That's the worst thing that Adams inherited, having to dance between the British and the French, being stuck between the two, and they're both kind of trying to pull you in their direction a little bit. They want you to pick a side to give them leverage over the other. It would be good to have the Americans on whatever side. Like, we had this deal with the French. We had a treaty with them, but also it's like, can we get pulled into this big conflict? On the British side, they are our biggest trading ally. Like, right after the Revolution, they were still the most important trading ally that we had. So we couldn't just cut them loose or anything like that in like the long term. We already had this revolution. We suffered economically for it. Are we going to jump back into a conflict? It feels like it's a lose-lose if we get involved. So George Washington's like, okay, we're just not going to get involved. We're going to be neutral.
Against partisan fighting.
In France, on the verge of war. Is this the best?
I want to warn against partisan fighting. But pick up a pen, start writing.
Washington tried to be like, hey, we got to stop this partisan stuff. We're building these political parties and they're going to tear us apart or whatever. Except there's kind of the issue that there's no concessions to be made there. These ideologies are genuine. Like, if people feel this way, these debates kind of have to occur. There is a reason for parties. If we had like a one-party system, that would shut down a lot of political diversity, and that feels inherently un-American. If Washington came in and he was like, yeah, I want to throw a bone to these emerging democratic-type people who are starting to make a little bit of noise, yeah, that would have been great. I think he just wanted us to chill out and let the government do what it does. So, I don't know. I don't think he had much to offer that could stop partisanship from emerging. The fact is, if you want free and open debate in any system, parties are going to happen. That's just how it's going to be.
I want to talk about what I have learned, the hard-won wisdom I have earned.
As far as the people are concerned, you have to serve. You could continue to serve.
No, one last time, the people will hear from me. One last.
Obama is vibing right now. He's just like, yeah, that's me. I did a good job. Oh, sorry, I wasn't even like, oh, that's me. I did a good job. but really, he seems like the only person like who's like really feeling it. Either that or everybody's just like in the moment right now. I don't know. Maybe they're. I guess I don't expect them to be jumping out of their seats, but that's kind of like a fun little thing to look at.
The people will hear from me one last time, and if we get this right, we're gonna teach them how to say goodbye. You and I.
So teach them how to say goodbye. That's good. That's a really good line to describe what Washington did. Like, you gotta let these political figures go. You gotta give it up to the next generation. You gotta build a system that can last beyond one leader. That's one of the big things. We have a lot of great leaders out there where once they're gone, the nation just doesn't know what to do next. We could talk about like Alexander the Great. He's considered like this amazing leader or whatever, but did his empire stand when he was gone? No, it fell to pieces. So George Washington, what he's doing here is just like setting the foundation that people can continue to build upon. And he's setting that foundation that is meant to be built upon. It's like this is not supposed to just be George Washington's vision of the country. And I think that's really cool. I think this song kind of handles that quite tastefully.
Hey, Mr. President, they will say you're weak.
No, they will see we're strong.
Your position is so unique.
So I'll use it to move them along.
Why do you have to say goodbye?
If I say goodbye, the nation learns to move on. It outlives me when I'm gone.
It really wants us to look at Obama.
So says, everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. They'll be safe in the nation we've made.
The vine and fig tree thing, that is something that George Washington, he really enjoyed that particular imagery. That is actually something that comes directly from him, and I love it when they do that. Every once in a while, they'll get those lines that connect so perfectly to things that they've actually said or written, and that's kind of one of the good ones. And it translates pretty well to the song here. He talks about earlier, Hamilton interjects and he's all like, hey, they'll say you're weak. And he's like, no, they'll see we're strong. And there is so much respect that went to George Washington for that moment. Like, it seemed like people just got it. Hamilton, in that sense, would be wrong. Like, they understood how important this was symbolically. There's even like this little story. I don't know how true it is. I don't know if it's like actually confirmed or not, of like even King George III looking at this and being like, wow, that's kind of amazing that he did that. that he just straight up gave up power and just like that's the guy you were just fighting against. Like I said, I don't know how true that one is. Like I believe the quote is what is it? Like, if he were to like step down, that would make him like the greatest man alive or something of the sort. But even if it's not true, there is a lot of truth to like the sentiment behind that and how people kind of receive that. When you see how important this moment is, you're not really surprised that George Washington became the legend that he is. I've said this. A lot of the characters in Hamilton, it shows some of them, they get some pretty treatment. But George Washington, I think he comes out of it just smelling like roses. And they highlight a lot of the best factors of Washington. There's other stuff, like he was a slave owner and all that stuff, but like there's a lot of truth behind the representation of George Washington. Like there is definitely something pretty good there, and I'm liking this song.
I want to sit under my own vine and fig tree, a moment alone in the shade, at home in this nation we've made. One last time, one last time. The incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of intentional error. I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. I shall also carry with me the hope that my country will view them with indulgence. That after 45 years of my life dedicated to its service with an upright zeal.
There is something in the style of this writing that really like this whole speech, it did capture something in George Washington's character that was always present, even when other people weren't writing for him. His humility. I don't know how he felt up there, but he was always so conscious of his faults. He always was insecure about he wasn't as well read as he would have liked to be. He didn't feel like he... Look at Lin-Manuel Miranda right here. That's just the worst freeze frame there. Sorry, I could not comment on that. He was like not as well read as he would have liked to be. He felt he was inadequate for the position in the military he was given, even though like he clearly wanted to be in charge. He wouldn't have shown up wearing his military uniform if he wasn't ready for that. But like he always would express like, yeah, I may not be perfect, but I feel that I am honest and I am trying sincerely to do my best. He always tried to make sure, you know, like his intentions were always good, and he didn't want anybody to question his intentions.
The faults of incompetent abilities will be consigned to oblivion, as I myself must soon be to the mansions of rest.
He soon be. Like, he will soon be dead, yeah. And that actually comes from something that George Washington's family kind of had a history of dying a little bit young. He kind of knew, like, if the pattern stays true, then he's not going to be around all that much longer. He probably would have lasted a little bit longer if he just put a coat on. Jeez. Like, he ends up, like, getting sick. A lot of people believe it was just because he, like, stayed out during a storm and he wasn't he wasn't dressed appropriately for it, and then he got sick, and then he was like, let it go as it came, and didn't get treatment, and then it was, like, too late by the time, like, they started taking it seriously. So that, yeah. George Washington might have lived longer than he actually did, but, like, he was too much of a Chad.
I anticipate with pleasing expectation that retreat in which I promise myself to realize the sweet enjoyment of partaking in the midst of my fellow citizens, the benign influence of good laws under a free government, the ever-favorite object of my heart, happy reward as I trust of our mutual cares, labors, and dangers. One last time.
So there's I like reading into these things, even if it's more than I should, but I think this one's pretty apparent, like having Hamilton speak underneath, like, the beautiful singing of the Washington guy. He's just kind of like doing the speech as one would, and Washington's making it all pretty. Probably not because of any reputation for being a good speaker, because, like I said, Washington was not known for being a good speaker, but it's kind of like the way people would receive them. If Hamilton gave the same speech, people wouldn't have felt it the same way. And it's kind of that's probably a good reason why Hamilton did some of his best writing under pseudonym. Not knowing the person behind it, just being able to take the words for what they're worth, was much better for him. And being able to put that through the Washington filter, that's killer, man.
Say goodbye. Washington's going home. You and I going home. History has its eyes on you, yeah. We're gonna teach them how to say goodbye. Teach them how to say goodbye. We'll say goodbye. Say goodbye one last
I mean, like, it's kind of funny watching Obama here and there, and he's like one of the few people like who looks like he's genuinely enjoying it. I assume like 90% of the people in that room have not listened to like rap music for fun. Like, this is like the closest thing to rap music that a lot of them have experienced, like, for joy. So that's kind of a thing there. Obama actually does like hip-hop music, so I'd imagine this would actually connect to him a little bit more. I remember, I think it was Hillary Clinton, when she was running for president, she was asked if she liked rap music, and she's like, I like Hamilton. And that's kind of a thing. Hamilton is kind of a gateway for people who wouldn't typically enjoy hip-hop, but there's a lot of like really strong references to like hip-hop and some of like the greatest songs like I've ever heard in my life thrown into this. And it's like, oh, like if you're susceptible for this, if you just needed it packaged this way to get you into it, you know, that's cool. Maybe this, I think Hamilton does a good job of getting people curious about history, and hopefully it got some people curious about listening to rap music, because I think that is where Lin-Manuel Miranda really shined musically more than as a historian, but in the history elements, like a lot of the mistakes or whatever, or the things that are cut down or omitted, a lot of it I kind of get. Like, I give all, like, the leeway in the world to live performances, especially on such a scale. You're covering the guy's whole life. So, like, I totally get that. I like this one. I'm glad I chose this video over an animatic. The animatics are fine and all, but, like, this was an interesting one. I felt it. I felt it for real. And being able to analyze Washington's character is always interesting. And it's hard to reach him. I've always found that. He was very calculated, and he seemed to make sure you would remember him well. He was very legacy conscious. So he succeeded in that department because he's considered the greatest man in American history in a lot of ways. As far as presidents go, like, popular belief, him and Lincoln are, like, top two. I know, like, the history buffs would have their disagreements there, but, like, as far as, like, popular American beliefs, like, who are the best presidents? Oh, Lincoln, we got Washington. Those are the guys. And not until Lincoln would you get somebody who would capture the American imagination like that. I mean, you have Jefferson, who really captured, like, a sort of connection with the people, which I think was huge, and building upon Washington's legacy. I think that does some stuff. But yeah, it takes a while to get to another president who has that level of mystique. One could argue that nobody has ever really captured it. If you would put Washington, like, above Lincoln, above FDR, Reagan, all these guys who have been really put on a pedestal. It's never been like Washington. History has its eye on George Washington in a very interesting way. So, thank you guys for watching. I will be doing more Hamilton eventually. We don't have that much left to do. Jeez, I'm very excited to get into the final duel. That'll be fun. All right. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow with some more videos. All right. Bye.